This is the Bearcast, presented by Bird Culture Ford. Bird Culture Ford has been in Waco since 1936. Ford is the #1 selling truck in Texas 43 years running. The Bearcast is also presented by WellMed Medical Management and USMD Health System Dallas. Here's Craig Smoke and Grayson Grundhafer.
Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome to a brand new edition of the Bearcast on Sic'Em365.com. We come to you this week on location, kind of like old times in a way. Not that those were good old times in a way, but we are on location this week outside of the studio. Craig Smoke with you, Sic'Em365 writer, radio host, joined by Grayson Grundhafer, director of broadcasting, also team and recruiting reporter for Sic'Em365.com. Got Jack Kinsey running the mothership back at the home studios, and another busy week as the month of May crawls towards its midway point. Now past its midway point, got a lot of postseasons going on, getting underway, and a lot of notes to get to as well. But Grayson, it's another week in the book, another week closer to football, and it's definitely the summertime. If you just walk outside for about 2 seconds, how you doing this week, man?
Yeah, I'm doing good. And you're right. It's kind of weird being off-site. It's the first time we've done this in a while. So, yeah, it's different, but, we got to do what we got to do. So I'm excited to kind of get rolling, talk about a little bit of the things that are happening this week. Obviously, no football, but some other sports going on. And, of course, a little bit of recruiting information, which is always nice as well.
Yeah, there is some recruiting to talk about. We'll start with some recruiting. We'll also get into your mailbag, of course, to episode as we normally do, and a couple notes sprinkled in between. But starting off with that football note, Grayson, now 10 commits in the 2023 recruiting class, as last week Dave Aranda and company get, I guess, a somewhat unexpected commit. I don't know if that would be fair to say. I know it was unexpected for me when I got the alert from Sic'Em365.com, but Mineola athlete Dawson Pendergrass announces his commitment to Baylor. He has some nice offers, as I posted in, I think it was the good, the bad, and the ugly. When you look at the teams that offered him, the Texas Techs, UTSA, schools like that, those are staffs that I think a lot of people appreciate their evaluation process. So I think that says something first and foremost, but also, of course, the Baylor staff evaluates pretty well, and they obviously wanted him. So Dawson Pendergrass, not necessarily somebody majorly on the radar, but now commit number 10. What are your thoughts, and what does this mean for the 2023 class?
Yeah, I mean, it was kind of a unexpected one in ways. I was kind of expecting him to wait a little bit before he made any decision. And he was a guy who had visited a little bit, but really there wasn't a whole lot of massive momentum towards him making a commitment decision. So, yeah, it was a little unexpected in that way. I think it got even more unexpected when we all kind of realized the position that Baylor thought he was going to fill, which is kind of a third down power back, which is, good. You look at his film, you see the power, you see the balance, you see the athleticism. So you feel like, oh, yeah, he can fill that. But you also see the tape and you see him being an elite defensive player as well, which linebacker is kind of where everyone, I think, thought he was going to play. But going through his numbers, I mean, over 4,000 yards rushing, 50 touchdowns, over 1,000 yards receiving, 15 touchdowns. Those are just in the last 3 years. Also has 13 interceptions and 155 tackles. So he does it all at Mineola. And, I mean, he's a very, very good athlete, and I think that's what the most intriguing part of his game is. And he's also a great culture guy as well. Very good kid, fits kind of everything Baylor's trying to build. And so if you kind of look at the whole, you see a very good football player who I believe can translate to this Baylor offense. It's just a matter of how long does it take him to get to that point, and how much of it is him dominating the competition he's going against, or is he just a freak athlete and superstar? That's kind of the question, I think, always with smaller school guys. But I think at the end of the day, you are going to see a guy who is just a very good football player, can do a lot of things, and he's going to start off as a power running back for this Baylor offense.
Yeah, looking at his offer list, Arkansas, another school that offered him, Air Force, Colorado State, Texas Tech, as I mentioned, Indiana, UTSA, a few others as well, North Texas. So nice little offer list. Definitely, like I said, some staffs that I appreciate their evaluations. And I like the size, man, 6'3", 200-plus pounds. Obviously pretty nimble on his feet. I think nimble was the combination of words I'm trying to make there, but has got some athleticism to him. There's no watching his highlights. So I know some people were kind of left scratching their heads like, who, what? But I like the pickup. I think it's interesting, and I'm always even more intrigued by guys that can fill multiple roles. It always seems like those guys usually work out because they're versatile enough that they're going to find a spot to see the field on.
Yeah, and I kind of think it's probably the best part about this is that Baylor has a specific role in mind for him. So they watch his film and they're saying, hey, he can fit this role and really come in and be able to make an impact in that way. It's not as much of what Rule did where it's like, we'll get him on campus and just see what he can do. It's like, we know he can do this. Now we just need to develop him into that. So I find that really intriguing. And yeah, I think it's a good pickup. It is a little surprising, the timing of it. But at the end of the day, he's a good football player, and Baylor decided that this was a guy they needed, and Dawson decided Baylor was the spot for him. So I think it all kind of came together for both sides at this time.
So Dawson Pendergrass is commit number 10 coming out of East Texas, Mineola High School. And I guess now, as we do every time there's a commit, where does that leave us at the moment with them sitting at 10 as we go over the halfway point of the month of May?
Yeah, so I don't think they're done at running back. I think they're probably going to take another running back in this class. At least that would be my guess, or a transfer. One or the other. There's going to be another addition in my mind. As far as kind of looking around at the other positions, they still have a long way to go, honestly. I mean, offensive line, defensive line, both need to be addressed heavily. And then cornerback needs to be addressed as well. So you're going to see a lot of offers, a lot of visitors for those specific positions, and guys that Baylor is really going to make a conscientious effort to land. Obviously, right now, I've reported this on the site, but it looks like there's going to be 3 official visit dates in the month of June. We'll see if they narrow that down and try to make it 2 big ones. But as of right now, 3 kind of smaller ones in the month of June, and then potentially 1 or 2 later on in the recruitment process as well, whether that's in July or in December after the season. So still a lot of questions in that regard, but June's going to be a very busy time, and I think kind of a month where you're going to see a lot more commitments, and I expect Baylor to probably be up near, 15, maybe 20 commitments by the end of June / middle of July.
So we should be in for a pretty good run here over the next few weeks as far as recruiting goes, and that will be welcome news because there's not a lot of other news going on right now in regards to football because, of course, they're right in the midst of what's basically their off season. I did see a lot of guys graduating last week. Squirrel Williams was one of those, among many others who were able to get their diplomas. And knowing, I just remember his tweet in particular. There were several guys that walked, and then, of course, a lot of other athletes from other sports as well. So cool to see some people getting their caps and all of that. Shoot, Squirrel can have a couple of degrees by the time he leaves because he's already got 1. He's still got, good amount of time left. So good on him and everyone else for that. But I guess, is there anything else football-wise that you've taken note of? We're getting some game weekend matchups released. I saw where the primetime games are getting announced and Fox is announcing their big slate. But is there anything that maybe I'm not thinking of that we need to touch on football-wise?
No, like Dawson Pendergrass was the big story this week for football. Not a whole lot else, but yeah, the official visits, like I mentioned, I think are probably the other big news item for the week. But outside of that, yeah, it's a quiet time period. So we've talked about this coming. So now, it's going to be a lot about the football side of things and the recruiting side specifically.
Yeah, well, it was cool to see, ABC primetime games, Georgia, Oregon, Notre Dame, Ohio State, FSU, LSU, Wisconsin, Ohio State, Florida State on a Friday night. So it's at least fun to see those coming down the pipeline and seeing some of that start to line up. So elsewhere, men's tennis in front of a raucous home crowd last weekend, able to come back and defeat Stanford 4-3 to advance to the Elite Eight. And what a win it was, what a dramatic scene it was, and what a celebration it was. Still, a bit of a ways to go now, but they were able to win their matches at home and able to pull out against Stanford, Grayson, and just showed a lot of fight and a lot of toughness. And now it's, a couple steps away from playing for a championship for the Baylor men's tennis team.
Yeah, I mean, what a stretch it's been. I mean, they have gotten pushed far more than I thought they would against Texas A&M and Stanford. I mean, both of those matchups have been extremely competitive. And so now, Baylor's got to play Tennessee, a team that beat them once earlier this year at the ITA championships way early in the season, in the indoor as well, so not even outdoor. So this is a familiar opponent, but on a different surface, and two different teams at this point in the year. But I'm really intrigued by it. Tennessee is the number 6 seed. They're a very good program, a very good team. And I think Baylor's, frankly, going to have to play better tennis than they have the first, these past 2 matches. They're going to have to play more like the team we saw face TCU and face Texas during Big 12 play. So we'll see if they can get turned around. The good news is they haven't played their best tennis yet. And so hopefully that means that this stretch run, over the last 3 games, whether it's Elite Eight, Final Four championship, they can put their best product on the court. Because if they do have an opportunity to win a championship here. And we've said that for quite a few years. They've had great opportunities. And they have another one right here with a very senior-laden team. And so I'm hoping they can take advantage of it. But I will say, I think Tennessee is going to push them. And Tennessee's been, frankly, playing better tennis than Baylor over the last week or so. Yeah,
they had the last 2 weekends in particular. Well, I mean, really last weekend got dicey, down 3-1. And they've had some close calls that they've been able to kind of maneuver around. But you're right, now at this point, you can't really afford to get down 3-1 and expect to just rally every time. So the Vols are coming in hot. They won 4-0 in the opening round, or in the past round. So they took care of business pretty quickly and got to sit around and, kind of just get mentally ready for Baylor while Baylor's coming off of more of an emotional win. So Michael and company doing a great job, but now it's time to get over that hump, so to speak. I mean, they played for a couple titles now already. You'd love to see them actually bring one home. That would be just incredible to win a national title in tennis, but got to win a couple more to get there. Well, guess what? 2 more, right? 2 more to win the title.
3 more. Got to beat Tennessee more? And then the Final Four.
Okay, yeah, that's right. All right, so men's tennis in the Elite Eight round. Congrats to Michael Woodson and company on reaching this point. Now let's see if they can't bring home a championship. Meanwhile, you've got the NBA playoffs rolling along. Ish right back about his Phoenix Suns. He got to see some mop-up duty as the Suns were down 40-plus to the Mavericks. As a Mavericks fan, I love to see it. Cool that Ish got to get some mop-up duty, and he made the most of it too. He came in there and had 10-5 in 5 minutes of action, but that was something else the other night. And Ish Wainwright's NBA season comes to a close.
Yeah, good for him. I mean, signed that 2-way deal earlier in the year. He's going to be on the Suns next year as well, which is really cool. So I'm excited for him. He came in, had a nice little moment there in what was a terrible moment for his team. I mean, just one of the all-time worst performances I've ever seen in a Game 7 or just honestly in a playoff game. And the Mavericks played really well too, but yeah, it was nice to see Ish come in and be a bright spot on what was otherwise just a utter collapse by the Phoenix Suns, who honestly, they were the best team in the league for pretty much the entire year and then just showed up in Game 7 and laid an absolute egg.
Yes, they did. And as a Mavericks fan, it was one of the most beautiful things that I've ever seen. And I know you, as a Spurs fan, you didn't really like it that much, but that's okay.
No.
You guys have had your fun.
Yeah, you just don't like seeing teams play that bad in a game 7. You would have liked to see it be like a somewhat competitive game, but even even the Bucks versus Celtics game ended up being lopsided by the end as well. So it was just like 2 duds for game 7s that had so much promise, which, for a guy who didn't really have a horse in the race, it was kind of, tough to watch, but it's like blowout after blowout in game 7. But, oh, well, congrats to the Mavs. Congrats to the Celtics.
Yeah, absolutely. Elsewhere, just thinking of some things that have occurred over the last week. This is where my column, The Good, the Bad, the Ugly, can come in handy to really get into like all the nitty gritty of like every little thing that kind of happened along the way. So if there's something like we didn't mention, like men's Quidditch or something, that's probably in like Good, Bad, Ugly, right? So we won't, touch on every type of thing here, but we did get a couple of notes last week. The arena is going to start getting underway as far as the building of the Foster Pavilion. They're going to start breaking ground here month. Mac Rose confirmed that to us last week, just kind of reconfirming that timeline. Certainly, Waco's begging for more construction, so that's great news. But no, really, in this case, that's exciting that that's starting to kind of get back on track. We've been seeing a lot of the digging up and kind of clearing out of that area. But now he does confirm that they will start construction on that next month. So that's very exciting. And I guess, pre-mailbag, man, is there anything that like major that we have not touched on that we need to talk about?
No, I mean, the Foster Pavilion's a big thing, like you mentioned, and I think that's a good sign that the football ops building is probably going to get started this summer as well. So if both of those can get rolling this summer, that would be great. We've seen how fast the Welcome Center is just building like crazy. I mean, it's going to be done by the end of the summer. So if they can keep that same momentum, that would be great. I mean, they could be able to knock those out hopefully sooner rather than later. So it was great to hear that. Both of those coaches, Aranda and, Scott Drew and Nikki Collin, they need these resources. As things are starting to kind of blow up for those programs, this can kind of be that tipping point to take them even more over the top. So it's a big storyline, no doubt about it. It'll help give them the resources to recruit and continue to win at a very high level.
Yeah, I'm excited about both projects. I mean, I think they're both needed and they'll both be incredible additions. I mean, I know there was all the angst over when and where basketball arena and all that, but I mean, just they've made their plans and now they're breaking ground, and like I'm just ready to see it all completed. But gonna have to have a bit more patience. But at least it's gone from a pipe dream to actually they're starting construction, so that's pretty big news. There was one thing, I knew there was something that was nagging me that I wanted to ask you about. Austin Novosad, Baylor quarterback commit, picked up a Stanford offer last week. Now, normally, Grayson, I wouldn't bat an eye at many offers coming Austin Novosad's way. But Stanford, that's a little bit different because that's not one that gets handed out that much, a Stanford offer. That's one where, like, you have to have your academics, your ducks in a row. Is that any cause for concern, you think, for Baylor fans about their quarterback commit?
Actually, that's not really one that is very concerning for me. Kind of based on everything I've heard with Austin and just conversations I've had with him, I'm much more worried about a Ohio State or Texas A&M, two teams that have shown a lot of interest, really just, throwing everything they can at him. That would probably be much more cause for concern. I will say he's very locked in. Like, I'm not really all that concerned about any schools, to be honest. And Stanford particularly was a school that he mentioned that came and visited him when I went out and saw him a couple weeks ago. And he thought an offer might be coming. And basically, he was excited about it. You're excited about every offer, obviously, and excited about the coaches. But I think that Stanford being kind of where it is, it's kind of full. Also think it's not really a program that's showing a ton of momentum on the field right now. It's really things that he's going to look at regardless of how good the academics are. And also it's a little bit harder to early enroll at Stanford, which was something he mentioned that is a little bit of a drawback for a school like Stanford. It would require him to take, I believe, more AP classes, and I think he'd have to take some in the summer, something along those lines, in order to enroll early, which he wouldn't have to do at other schools. So while I think it's a big offer, I don't think that is one that's really cause for concern when it comes to Austin Novosad. As far as the other guys, A&M and Ohio State, there's a chance that those schools may offer and may try to get him to visit. But right now, I think he's a Bear, and he's been pretty locked in with that ever since he committed, and I don't see him wavering, flipping. When I talked to him, he had nothing but positive things to say about the way the staff handled the Blake Shapen choice. He loved that decision. He felt like it was going to really expand their offense, which is something he wants to see. It also shows him that this staff is willing to allow the young guy to play if he's better than the veteran. And I think that it just shows a lot of positive things, and Austin definitely took notice of that decision.
Well, that's good to hear. I mean, that's just something that I know a few years ago probably meant more than it does now, that Stanford offer. I just know like Connor Weddington and guys like that who were probably bound for a Texas or an A&M or whatever. That Stanford offer came in, and it's not for everybody, but for some guys that is that's a game changer because of that degree. But that's why I ask, and that's good to hear from a Baylor perspective. But that was another note from this past week, and he'll continue to pick up offers. That shouldn't be any type of a surprise. So there's kind of the news and notes section of the podcast this week. Again, there's other sports going on. Track and field had, a nice weekend, winning a bunch of Big 12 championships. Softball's going to a postseason tournament, so on and so forth. But a lot of that stuff, again, you can read the bad and the ugly each week. And some of that we will also be covering in our mailbag as well. So let's get into the mailbag and start off with Baylor 91, who does ask a baseball question to start things off with, saying, what are the odds a new baseball team starts around June 1st?
I think it needs to start soon. I mean, another series, another loss. And, at least they competed this weekend against Kansas State, but it's just tough. There's still a chance that they finish in last in the Big 12, but at least they got the one win, so they have cushion. But my goodness, it's been a disappointing season all around, and I think they need to change. So I don't know if it'll be June 1st, but I do think change is coming.
Yeah, I don't like really getting into, talking about people's jobs too much. It's just not fun, unless somebody is so despised. But Steve Rodriguez isn't despised by any means. There's a lot of people who enjoy him, and there's been some good moments, but yeah, man, they're just another series they should have won, quite frankly, but meltdown and end up dropping 2 of 3. And now they are barely hanging on to that last spot in the Big 12 tournament. And if total chaos were to break loose this weekend, Kansas earns, a sweep, and Baylor somehow doesn't win one game, then they would be in the Big 12 tournament. Now, that's probably not going to happen. I think Kansas is not probably going to get a sweep, I don't think. And then I would think Baylor, well, I don't know about them winning a game. So
yeah,
it's going to be it's too close for comfort. And had they not had some blown saves and, blown games earlier in the year, then they'd be living comfortably right now as far as, being fully in the tournament and not having to worry about anything. But they do go to this weekend having to, basically feel like they have to win a game, and they're going to have to be scoreboard watching in some ways. So that's not ideal and not really where to be in. So I don't know about June 1st to answer your question, Baylor 91, but I do wonder if I do feel like there have to be some conversations going on just about, all right, what's the plan here, depending on how this thing closes down, because there's just, again, like we've been saying, there's just not a lot of momentum there right now. And, the last weekend didn't help them at all. That was just an ugly way to kind of end things in Manhattan. So we'll see, but I definitely think there are conversations at least happening. We'll say that. Scotty B, the Baylor King, whether it is a former Baylor athlete or not, has inspired you the most recently?
Geez. That's a good question. Do you have one?
No, I've not been inspired by any Baylor athlete lately. No. I mean, there's some cool stories, but inspired, no. I have one.
Yeah, I'd love to say someone like Abram Smith, who just went from hardly playing, tearing his ACL, being injured, to being the all-time leading rusher in Baylor history for a season. That's pretty inspiring and pretty crazy. But, it's so hard to say one has inspired me. And the reason why I say this is because Ish was kind of in no man's land, I feel like. And then he found his way back to the NBA, wasn't even playing for a while, and then got this opportunity and has taken the most of it. So, I give Ish a lot of props because I didn't think Ish was, one of the better Baylor players I've seen in my time. Yet he's found a way to stick and found his way back to the NBA. So that one has been really impressive to me.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just taking the word literally, and so that's why I say no one's inspired me. But, in terms of just feeling good for people and, being impressed by the way they, been able to manage things, it's somebody that I think some people could look to and get inspired by. Just a roundabout way that he's, journeyed all the way to Phoenix through playing college football randomly at the end of his basketball career to NFL dropping the bucket to, all that. That's been pretty cool. And we did get a good example from Scotty, who asked the question. He said, I admit for me, it is my friend Christy Wallace, who has dealt with 2 torn ACLs in 2018, is now a starter for the WNBA after getting the 6th man of the year in the pro league in Australia. So that's great, man. I liked Christy when she was around here, although that seems like years and years ago now at this point. And I guess it kind of is in some way. Hey, if she's inspiring people, that's fantastic. And, like I said, I'm taking the definition literally. But, yeah, certainly I look to stories like her or Ish or any number of others. And, I'm impressed. I'll say that. Impressed. And I can see where others would definitely be inspired. So great for Christy. And she's one of a good number of Baylor Lady Bear alums that are in the WNBA right now. So thank you, Scotty, as always. Chase Bears, for as long as I've been on this site, my first question to send to the Bearcast. Well, thank you, Chase. Okay, the both of you are on the Big 12 scheduling committee for when the 4th team enters the league. How would you schedule the season out? Would it be split East-West conference, or would it be a conference with 14 teams, no split? Or would you choose pods? Pick either and then lay out the schedule. The year 2023, how would you rotate the teams in 2024?
Yeah, so I mean, we've talked about this a little bit, and I think for us, it's about keeping the Texas teams together and then kind of adding the West schools to that mix. And then everyone else is on the other side. So I guess that would be Baylor, Texas, TCU, Texas Tech, BYU, Houston, and I'm missing one.
Oklahoma State.
Yeah. They'd be in that one as well, and then the rest on the other side. And so you would play all the teams in your, division, and then you'd play, what would that be? 6. You'd play 3 teams from the other side. And I think it would just rotate just like the SEC does it now. You rotate every year between those three different teams from the other side, so you're not playing the same team every single year. And I would not do locked-in rivalries on the other side since you're playing all your rivals in division. And the reason I say that is because you get stuck with, A&M plays Vanderbilt every single year or something ridiculous like that. So, yeah, I think that's kind of how I would lay it out, and I think that's how I would divvy it out throughout the coming years as far as the schedule rotation. Would be the 6 in your division and then the three on the other side rotating.
Yeah, I've gone back and forth on this because I think you probably do need to have divisions, but then there's this whole, hey, we don't need divisions for championship game anymore. So that's where it's kind of gone for a loop. And, well, if you don't have to have divisions, then, I'm kind of all for just, some other format. Now, exactly how you would do that, I guess it would be similar to the NFL where, basically you're going to have standard opponents every year no matter what, whether they're in a division or not, just because it just makes it easier to schedule out. So, yeah, I mean, I would go with you have to play TCU every year, and you have to play Texas Tech every year. You play the Texas teams every year. I mean, I think that just makes sense. You play the Texas teams every year. And then with whatever's remaining, I mean, there's the 5 other schools, quote-unquote, other if you were to do it that way. I just think you know, if you got 2 other games, then UCF and ISU are 1 year, and then you home and away it, and then you do Kansas State 1 year and home and away it, and then you do West Virginia, Cincinnati, and you home and away it. That would be probably the best bet. But again, it would depend on the number of games. So be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. If they're playing, they've been playing 9 conference games. How many conference games are they playing? That's the other thing.
That's a good question. Yeah, because the SEC plays 8.
Yeah, and they've been playing 9, but do they want to continue playing 9? I mean, 9's been more of a necessity, but if you're going to be back at 12, well, you can't play everybody, so are you still going to play 9? I don't know. So that kind of complicates things a little bit more. Well, so we're not going to be able to get the exact formula for you. If it was up to me, it would be, an East-West thing if you do a split. Again, you don't have to do a split, but if you do it, then, I think you would be East-West. But I don't know, man.
I kind of like your idea of not doing a split. And the reason I say that is because you end up having that Big 12 South, Big 12 North thing where the North is just terrible and the South is just, having 3 11-win teams in it like they did that 1 year. So that's the only hard part with that. Now, even if you don't do a division, though, you still have to play everyone, and it's still luck of the draw with who you play. But I kind of like the idea of doing no division. You just rotate the schedule each year. I still like playing 9 conference games, though. I prefer that. So I think I'd go with that. 3 non-con. One of those has to be a Power 5 opponent. You play your 9 conference games. The top 2 teams in the conference go to the Big 12 championship.
Yeah, I think that's where I am, too. Divisions are cool, they're fine, but with the recent talk, I don't know if they're necessary now at this point with the way the Big 12 is going to be set up. Because you're right, like if you did it with like 1 year, it's like the Kansas schools, Iowa State, West Virginia, Cincinnati, UCF. Like, give me the other side of that all day long. That other side with Houston and Baylor and Oak State and Tech, like come on, that would be a little lopsided, most likely. So, I say no divisions, just 14 teams, and however you set that schedule. I obviously don't have that in my head right now, how exactly you would do that. But, no split and just rotate. How I would choose pods, I think Baylor's got to be with TCU, Tech, and Houston. I mean, that just, if you were to do pods, that's got to be – but then again, is it 12 teams, 3 14 pods, 2 16 pods? Like – I don't know. Whatever the pod format would be, you got to be with the Texas schools. I'll just say that.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Yeah. Let's see. Pick either schedule for 2023. How would you rotate the teams 2024? Well, we kind of talked about that. Yeah, like I don't know exactly how I would rotate. Just, I don't know, Baylor, Cincy, West Virginia, Tech, TCU, KSU, and then the next year you play Houston, KU, UCF, Oak State, ISU. I don't have an exact format for what I would care to be there, but I think I am anti-division and more about let the dice roll and try to play as many teams as you can. But I don't have a good idea on rotating right now. Exactly.
Yeah, I think that's hard to predict, to be honest, how they would do that. But I do think you need to have your every year opponents, whether it's 2 or 3 that you play every single year. I think that just builds rivalries. It builds a better conference when you have those kind of storylines. But I'm kind of digging the idea of doing no divisions because we've seen just how south those can go at times. I mean, like you look in the SEC, the SEC West has been a juggernaut while the SEC East has been down for a while outside of, Georgia. And so you just get those situations, and I don't really like those situations. It's not fun for anyone when, a school that's 9-3 is making the title game, and the teams on the other side, there's like 3 10-win teams. Like that's not fun for anyone.
Well, look at last year. It wouldn't have been Baylor-Oklahoma State. It would have been like Oklahoma State versus Iowa State if there was divisions. And that would have been garbage. I mean, that would have been a garbage title game, and look how much different everything would have been. Instead, you had your 2 best teams playing. And so I'm adamant that it's about the 2 best teams, and therefore, no division. Keep them with the Texas schools every year. So there's 3 automatic opponents. If Oklahoma State's involved in that, I don't care. But you got to play Houston, TCU, and Tech. And then as far as the rotations and all that, again, right off the top of my head, I don't know, but definitely rotate them through as much as you can, because a lot depends on number of conference games, all of that, but definitely no divisions. And thanks for the question, Chase. Hopefully that's not your first and last. But while we didn't answer it entirely, I think we spent a good amount of time on it. And clearly it's something that a lot of people are talking about and wondering about. But still, there's 2 more years of Oklahoma and Texas as well. So that's still part of the deal. We're not even counting them in this mix for, the next couple of years as well. But, in 23, 24, that'll be very interesting. I know they're sorting through a lot of that right now. So I think you kind of get the gist. No splits, Texas schools, and then kind of the rest of it, we'll have to kind of play it by ear a little bit more. Hopefully that answers your question, man. Do appreciate it. Hope to hear from you again. Jack, JD90 says, did the staff see something in Drones in the spring that gives them confidence he could step in and hold down the fort for 2 to 3 games this season if Shapen gets hurt this year? On this board, it seemed like Drones was having a terrible spring, but the staff must have seen something in him to think he's ready. They were going to tell Gary in time for the transfer portal, right? So let's start right there, Grayson.
Yeah, I mean, I think they've seen enough in him and CJ Rogers to feel like they can get through the season. They're also going to add Brayson McHenry, a walk-on, just, to add a little more depth. But I think they're going to roll with those guys. Now, the offense is going to look completely different if Kyron Drones or CJ Rogers is in the game, if it's not Shapen. So there will be a lot of work to do, and there will be a downgrade in the offense if Shapen does get hurt. But I think they feel okay with what they saw from Drones and Rogers to feel like, hey, we'll go into the season with these guys, we'll ride it out, and then get Austin Novosad in December to help that depth again.
Yeah, I don't see it as any overly. I started that off wrong. I see it as that they just have confidence in Kyron Drones. I mean, I don't feel like he had like a bad spring. I don't really feel like that was the case. I mean, I granted didn't watch him a whole lot, but I mean, what I saw seemed okay. But I'll leave it to others who may have thought otherwise. But I didn't think he had like a terrible spring. Also, does CJ Rogers get a Scully?
I think he probably is going to have to get one because they need a 3rd quarterback on scholarship. And so I think he probably will. The problem is like, you got to remember, they're trying to build out their roster to be the most competitive they can be next season. And so if that means deciding between taking a transfer wide receiver or putting a walk-on quarterback on scholarship, I'm not sure what that decision will be. And I also think Josh Cameron should probably get a scholarship before CJ Rogers does. So it's kind of playing the math game there. But I do think, kind of looking at the numbers, I'm guessing he'll probably get one.
Yeah, I would assume that if things continue on this trajectory, that he's probably bound for one at some point. But I don't know if it's just the time yet to make that call. But yeah, definitely they're going to have to, you would think, make that call. He says, I don't know the scholarship math, but it seems like he's earned one if he's QB3. We need to give him one if he's 2 snaps away from running the offense. So that was from Dak JD90. Thank you, Dak, for the question. But yeah, I mean, we will see. That is one that's interesting. But I agree with your answer there, Grayson. Stat Boy, what's more likely to happen? Baylor men's tennis wins a national title this season, or Baylor football repeats as Big 12 champions this coming season? Thanks.
Oh, gosh. You know what? I'm going to go with men's tennis, and the only reason for it is because they're already in the Elite Eight.
Yeah.
They're already here. They're at the end of the year, so they've already made it through the grind of the year. So I'll go with them.
Yeah, I'm going with the team that's, 3 games away from winning a title versus the team that hadn't even played a game yet. That's just an easier bet, to be honest with you. That was Vegas. Like, yeah, give me the team that's knocking on the door already all the way. I do think the football team has a chance to do that, but, yeah, men's tennis is knocking on the door, stat boys, so we'll both roll with them. Bear Kook first. Does Baylor ultimately end up higher than Texas Tech when all is said and done 2023 recruiting rank?
Yes, I think they will. I think they'll both be near I think Baylor will be in the top 25. I think Tech will be closer to 30.
Second, what would a missed golden opportunity be to you in 2022 season? We are bringing a ton of talent back in the trenches, so we're finishing 4th or 5th in the Big 12. Be a letdown this year. We're finishing 3rd.
Fourth or 5th would be a letdown.
Yeah,
I'm not looking around at the Big 12 and going, man, this is a deep conference full of 10-win teams. I just don't see it.
I'll say this too, man. I'm already seeing a lot of people blowing smoke for Oklahoma. Like, I know that's like the default button, and I know Oklahoma about as well as anybody. But this whole they're the default champion every year. That doesn't fly with me. Like, they might win it this year with Brent Venables, but they got a lot of daggum questions, man. Like, I don't know where people are coming from with oh yeah, they're the number 1 team in the Big 12 next year. Like, based on what? Dylan Gabriel? Like, are you kidding me? Who's their skill guys? I mean, half the teams from the transfer portal. I don't know. I don't know if it's like the people think that just the Levy offense is going to score 80 a game or something, but I have my doubts about them just winning the title. I see a lot of people assuming. But yeah, anything lower than 3rd, which would be right there knocking on the door of the Big 12 title game, would be a massive disappointment in my opinion.
Yeah, because I think 3rd means you probably went 9-3 at worst. And so I'm kind of thinking that that's around the number they need to get to. 8-4, I think would be a little disappointing. So yeah, I would probably say 3rd is probably okay. Anything less than that is, I think a disappointment for what they have coming back this year.
Finally, I hate when players get hurt, but we may have a decent chance of Shapen getting hurt. You never know. How confident are you in our offense and our coaches to overcome that potential injury if it was to happen? Thanks, guys. Y'all are amazing. Well, Bear Kook, do appreciate it, but I'm already noticing a trend of Blake Shapen injury questions in this mailbag, and I don't want this to become a habit. I understand he got hurt in the Big 12 title last year, but he ain't Charlie Brewer. Let's not make this a thing every single week. Not, calling you guys out or nothing, but that's 2 of the first 5 questions that are referring to Shapen's injuries. So, all right. But if he does get hurt, and I understand why. I mean, he got hurt last year, but do you have confidence in the offense if he gets hurt again, Grayson?
Yeah, I think these questions honestly have more to do with the fact that if Shapen doesn't play, the questions are crazy about Drones and Rogers.
Yeah.
There's not a lot of depth. So I get it. I would say that I'm not all that confident in their offense without Shapen. I think they can win games, but it will be a grinded out type of game like it was with Gary a year ago, except with less experience at the quarterback position. So I'd be concerned if they did lose Shapen. Do I think they could go out and win 7-8 games with a backup quarterback? Probably. Do I think that they could win a Big 12 championship with a backup quarterback? I don't think so. And I know they did it with Shapen this past year, but I don't know that I see a guy on the roster that I'm like, okay, this guy this year can win a Big 12 championship and carry this team.
Well, and also, if it was Gary Bohannon, it would be the same questions because he actually missed more time last year than Blake Shapen did. So, I would assume we would be getting the same questions about Gary, and his was not even contact, whereas Shapen's was. So, if Gary got the job, Shapen's gone, and it's still Kyron Drones and C.J. Rogers backing him up. So they do have to kind of figure something out depth-wise at QB, and that's the risk that you take when you don't take a quarterback in a class. This is where you can kind of find yourself of not having that great depth behind your starter. So, yeah, I think that applies to either quarterback, whoever, whether it would have been Shapen or whether it's Shapen or whether it would have been Bohannon. But, yeah, it would be tough. It would be tough out. I almost posted this as well. I, too, am curious about the drone scenario. That must have felt decently confident in his ability. I feel like there's a decent chance that Shapen goes down in at least one of these games, even if just for a couple series. That's from Bear Coug. So, all right. Well, stay healthy, Blake Shapen, because the fan base doesn't have confidence that he will. But, no, I'm kidding. I get it. But, again, we'd be saying the same thing if it was Gary Bohannon. Or maybe we would, but we should be if we weren't. Joel Clack groupie. I just don't believe that a Redhead staff declaring QB1 shortly after the spring game had much to do with confidence in the backups or person over player for GB. They did it to keep Shapen. He wasn't staying if not the starter. His market value was peaking, especially once he proved his shoulder was fine. The rest was letting the chips fall where they may. Now, if Grayson is right that the staff is not planning to take a scholarship portal quarterback, that would be a tell that the staff has confidence in both backups. If they only trust one, they'll need to burn a scholarship on a transfer with experience.
I'm not so sure that I believe in that conspiracy theory. I think.
Yeah, me neither.
I think that if they wouldn't have named a quarterback and gone into the fall that way, I think they would have been able to find a way to keep both of them. Now, obviously, if they had named Gary the starting quarterback, then, yeah, Shapen probably has to look at his other options. But I think they did this to do the person over player thing for Gary and allow him to go find a landing spot somewhere else, while also saying, hey, Blake, you're our best quarterback. You're our best shot at winning a national championship. So I think that's why they did it, to be honest. I don't think it was just to keep Shapen. I mean, obviously, they named him because they felt like he was the best option. It wasn't just to, like, we just need to keep him. He's not great, but he's a little bit better than Gary. That's how I'm reading this, and I don't believe in that. Now, as far as the other part, the whole transfer portal part, I think there's a chance they could take a quarterback in the portal, but I'm just not seeing it right now. The way they've kind of structured their scholarships with Kyron Drones and Austin Novosad, I think they're going to, grind it out this year, try to find ways to keep their quarterbacks healthy. I think they have enough faith in their backup quarterbacks to get through this year. And then again, they'll get Novosad in December. So, yeah, I think that's kind of where they're at the quarterback position right now. And they feel great about Blake Shapen as the starter.
Yeah, I mean, I see where he's coming from, but I don't really get the whole they did it to keep Shapen. But you just discard Gary. Like, see, dude, I don't know. I'm not sure. I have to probably reread that again. But I think they definitely want to keep Shapen. I don't think you name a starting quarterback just to keep the guy on campus. Like, there's too much at stake to do that. Like, this is not a game you could play around and just, like, fiddle-faddle with, roster spots and just whatever. Like, we've seen chaos break loose. You have to be fully prepared. I don't think they wanted to lose either guy, but the reality of it is that they were bound to either way. So if you think Shapen's better, then yeah, you want to keep Shapen. If you think Bohannon's better, then you name Bohannon the starter and you lose Shapen. But either way, you're losing a guy, right? So I don't think there's like really anything more to it than that, quite frankly, is they did a service to both guys and they named who they think's the player at the end of the day. And it just so happens that it creates a little bit of a problem depth-wise, but again, they would be facing that if Gary Bohannon was the starting quarterback right now. So kind of damned if you do, damned if you don't. Unless you want to play the game and take it into fall and then have a disgruntled guy sitting on your bench and maybe transferring midseason because he's not seeing time, because that's how it would play out probably the other way. Or you hope for the magical scenario where they both get hurt like last year and they're both forced to stay, which the odds of that are ridiculous, and planning that is ridiculous because you can't plan that. So, yeah, I mean, it is what it is, I guess. Doc Crow, how are you feeling about tennis with their performance so far? I think we're feeling pretty good about it, Grayson.
Yeah, I feel good about it. I mean, I mentioned that they haven't looked as good as Tennessee in these past 2 rounds. Tennessee has only dropped one game in their last, or one set, I guess, in their last 3 matches during the NCAA tournament, whereas Baylor's looked far more shaky. But I will say they're grinding and they're finding ways to win. And like I said, I think the fact that they haven't played their best tennis yet might be a good sign. It might be one of those things where they finally play their best tennis against Tennessee and then in 4. I'm hoping that's the case, because if they play like they have against A&M and against Stanford, then I think they'll probably lose to Tennessee on Wednesday or Thursday.
Doc Crow, when do you think the 24 class will be full by?
Wow, 2024?
They have what, 1 commit for 24?
Right. You're going to be waiting until probably December of 2023.
2023.
Yeah.
So 18 months, give or take, whatever. If you meant the 2023 class, I'm assuming that's what you meant. December of 2022?
It'll probably be full by then. But like I said, I think they'll get a big chunk this summer. I really do. I think they'll make a lot more strides towards getting to that 20 number. And I think that's around the class size. Could be a couple spots bigger. But yeah, I think by the end of the summer, you'll have a much better idea of what this 2023 class is going to look like in totality.
Thank you, Doc. Tim Bear, please ask, how much better is the Baylor offense predicted to be now that we have Shapen as quarterback?
Yeah, so I actually got a question about this in my chat this week. And basically it was kind of saying how Baylor was 40th in scoring offense a year ago. And the teams that made the college football playoff were all inside the top 16. So Baylor's got to make a jump, it seems, at least to get on par with the teams from a year ago. I'm going to say I don't love points per game, because a lot of times it's kind of comes down to how badly you beat your non-conference opponents. Like, you hang 60 on those dudes, and then that really jumps up your scoring. But I think overall, Baylor will probably get to around 36, 37 points per game this year, which would be a huge upgrade and would put them inside the top, right around top 15. And I think that's probably a good expectation for this team. And if they do get to that number, I think that'll allow them to be much better, more consistent, especially. So I think my biggest takeaway was they're going to be worse in the time of possession statistic, which is a good thing, because most of the teams that made the college football playoff were not inside the top 20 in time of possession because they were far more explosive. And Baylor was not explosive last year, which I think held them back because it forced them to be perfect. It forced them to run the ball, not fumble it, not throw interceptions, grind out the clock, score points in the red zone. This team, I think, will be able to do that, but I also think they'll have much more home run ability, which really kind of covers up the mistakes of having to go, 11 plays every single time you score a touchdown. If you can narrow that to having, a couple drives where it only takes you, 5 plays or 3 plays, I think that'd be a huge upgrade, and I think that's what you're getting with Blake Shapen at quarterback.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's more of the big playability and more of the quick strike capability, whereas it was sort of very plotting at times, grinding out, like you said, like 11, 12 play drives, 3 plays for a first down, 3 more plays for another first down, kind of. I do think it'll be like first down, second down, first down, second down, first down, kind of like that. So, I definitely think there's a little bit more explosiveness in the passing game in particular, and that can set up some more explosiveness via the running game as well. So that's, I think we both see eye to eye on kind of where he's bringing them offensively. Yeah, I don't know about scoring 50 a game or anything crazy. I don't know if we can do a shootout every single week. Defense is still going to be their bread and butter, but I do think they can compete probably better in shootouts this year with Blake than versus Gary. I would think so. But, we will see. But a lot of Blake Shapen, you are in the spotlight, son. You are definitely in the spotlight now as QB1. So hopefully he's, fully prepared and fully ready. I believe he is. Otherwise, I don't think they would have named him the starter if they didn't feel like he was capable of doing it. I think that's the bottom line. ultimately. But do appreciate everybody's questions this week. Some familiar faces and some not so familiar faces, and hopefully if you're one of the new faces, then definitely hope you're a part of the party moving forward. But Grayson, anything before we?
No, that's just a great way to end it right there. Is just kind of saying, if you haven't asked questions in the past, or if you do ask questions, please ask more, because as we get through the summer, y'all's questions really get us thinking and really debating and getting more conversation going. So please ask questions if you have any. If you've never asked a question before, please give it a try. I promise we won't get mad at any question that is asked or say anything about it. We'll answer it to the best we can. And if you do ask questions already, please continue it, because we love to answer them.
All right. For Jack McKenzie doing a great job behind the scenes, and for Grayson Grundhay for Oak, and definitely check out all the content all over the website. The seasons may be over for some and winding down for others, but there's still championships being played for. We've got that all covered. And, of course, football never sleeps, and neither does basketball really either. So for everything Baylor athletics, definitely hop on over to Sic'Em365.com. And if you haven't already, become a premium member. That's the best way to support us, as well as listen to the radio show and listen to this podcast as well. If you haven't already, download the Sic'Em 365 app and check us out 3 to 6 Monday through Friday. It's also where you'll hear pre-games during the season, midway games as well during the high school season, Connolly football as well, all available on the Sic'Em 365 app in the iTunes store and wherever you get your podcasts. So until next time, thanks to Jack, thanks to Grayson, and thanks to you out there for listening. I'm Craig Smoke. And until next time, this has been the Bearcast on Sic'Em365.com.